All right. Here we go. Switch the angle there. Good. Let's do this. Podcast time, everybody. Today, guys, we're talking about a little bit of mindset, but a little bit of training related. I'll get into it in a minute. But before we get into the show, as always, remember the goal of this show. We're here to help athletes reach their true potential and build their dream careers in their sport. We are here to teach you about the mindset to approach your sport with. We are here to teach you about different things actually related specifically to training, mistakes that we see, and just so much more. So let's get into the show. Why don't we? So we're going to get going into the show. We are talking about some mindset stuff. We are talking about a little bit about training as well. And we are going to get into it in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we're talking about a couple of different things. But as you might have noticed, the title of this episode is You Need PEDs, Bro. And so I wanted to talk specifically about why it's called that, and then get into the details of the episode. So the episode is called You Need PEDs, Bro, because I posted something probably a couple of weeks ago now on TikTok that's been gaining some traction. And it was about building your gas tank. And I talked about a specific athlete in the UFC, Merab Dvalishvili. If I'm not saying that properly, apologies. And basically how, if you want to build a gas tank like his, different components of what it actually takes to go into that and to actually build a gas tank as incredible as this athlete. If you've ever watched him fight, it's ridiculous. And I had a bunch of people that, were responding, talking about the session example that I gave and, excited to try it out. And then I had a bunch of people that just went the total opposite way. And this is the mindset that I want to talk about today. A number of comments, straight up, no other, not digging into the type of session that I was talking about or any kind of anything. Just said, you need PEDs, bro, or if you want a gas tank like that, you need drugs. Basically just dismissing the idea at all that you can get a gas tank at that level without cheating. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Merab is clean or not clean. That is for him to know and for the UFC to try to find out. But to my knowledge, he has not failed any drug tests. If he has, then apologies for that again. However, what I want to talk about is deeper than whether or not Merab is actually a clean fighter. What I want to talk about is the mindset behind that statement. So let's say he's a dirty fighter. Let's say Merab's done a bunch of drugs, and the reason that he can push the pace the way that he can is because he's cheating. What you need to understand right away anyway is that you're not just going to pump yourself full of drugs and then be able to push a high pace in a UFC fight. The ability to do that, regardless, comes from ridiculous amounts of hard work and ridiculous amounts of very specific training to be able to accomplish that goal. So, regardless of whether or not this specific athlete is clean, taking the mindset on a video like that, saying this is a good way to build a gas tank like this specific fighter, and just saying you can't do that, he has that because he's dirty, is a perfect example of giving away your power. Now, what I mean when I say that is you're immediately just dismissing the idea that you could ever be at that level without cheating. In your opinion, it is out of your control. Now, what's going to benefit you more? Sitting and saying, well, he's that good because he cheats, or looking into different training methods that could help you, if not get to specifically that level, even closer to that level. You get what I'm saying? So the mindset of giving away your power is basically admitting that things are out of your control, which honestly, when it comes to training, and this outside of very, very extreme circumstances, when it comes to training, this just isn't true. Let's say tomorrow, knock on wood, I don't wish this on anybody, but let's say tomorrow you break your leg. You can go one of two ways. You can either say, A, my leg's broken, so I can't train. And if I can't train, I may as well just sit around and not do anything. Or you can say, B, my leg's broken, so I can still hit my upper body. And if I still hit my upper body and then work on, endurance stuff in my arms, my shoulders, etc., then by the time my legs healed and ready to get strong again, I'm going to be in a way better spot. And in turn, I'm going to be able to come back faster. Which mindset do you think is going to be more successful in the sport? The one who says, this bad thing happened to me, therefore everything sucks and I can't do anything about it? Or the one who says, yeah, this bad thing happened to me, but what can I continue to do to move forward so that I can continue to get the best possible result I can in the least amount of time, which ultimately is the ultimate goal of training. So when it comes to this comment specifically, you need PEDs, bro. First of all, if you're going after someone for drug use and you don't know for sure, like they haven't popped on a bunch of drug tests, like that's just kind of a shitty attitude. But second, right away, you're dismissing the information in the video, which could be very, very useful to you. Just saying, go look it up, shameless plug. And second, you're dismissing the idea that you can get to that level without actually cheating. And if you're dismissing the idea that you can get to that level without cheating, immediately you're saying that dream, that level, that goal isn't possible for me. And if right away you're saying that goal isn't possible for me, then how good do you think you're going to get with your training? How good do you think you're going to get continuing to do what you do? Whereas instead, taking that same mentality, even if you look at Merab and you think he's cheating, you look at guys at that level and you think they're cheating. Whereas if you can look at that level and think, those guys might be cheating, sure, but then reframe it and say, what can I do to get myself as close to that level as possible? You're going to be more successful, period, because you're keeping it under your control. One of my favorite examples of looking at this was a video I saw from Gary Vaynerchuk years and years and years ago now. And he talked about how everything in his life is his fault. He said, he believes that to the extent, and this is obviously an extreme example, he said he believes that to the extent of if he was to walk out of his house and get hit by a bus, in his mind, he shouldn't have left the house at that time. And he said, then, obviously, if you were to get hit by a bus, very few people could ever blame you for that. But keeping that supreme level of accountability, keeping that supreme level of self-accountability just puts you in a position that no matter what happens to you, you're in control. No matter what happens to you, you're in control. Instead of looking and saying he can only get that good, he's only that good because he cheats, look and say, how do I get that good without cheating? Look and say, what can I change about the training I'm doing right now that can help me get to that level? And just by looking at what you can do differently or looking at what you can improve, you're going to put yourself in an entirely different position in your career. One of the examples, even for myself, is when COVID shut the world down in 2020, a lot of people that do what I do, a lot of strength and conditioning coaches went out of business. They either went out of business or they spent their time just kind of fucking off and hoping that the world opened back up again. When that happened, I thought two things. Either A, I can let this be the time that breaks me and let this be the time that, I go out of business, I lose the business that I've been working so hard for, or B, I can figure out how to work online. Previously, I'd stuck away from online training. I wasn't confident in my ability to deliver a service online. And so it just didn't ever align with what I wanted to do. But now I was kind of forced into it. But again, instead of sitting around and saying, hey, COVID happened, there's this terrible thing, and well, it's not my fault, so I'm just going to sit around and feel sorry for myself. I figured out how to go online. I figured out how to deliver a better service without having to be in the gym with the people. And now online is 70% plus of my entire business. I make more money online now than I made in the gym before COVID. And the reason that's important, guys, is because, again, looking at it as something that is my responsibility. Yes, COVID was not my fault, but it was my responsibility to fix the problem. It was my responsibility to overcome the issue that I was being faced with, which was the fact that I wasn't allowed into the gyms with my athletes. And so the same idea as that post and that response of, in order to have a gas tank like Merab, you need to be a cheater. The same idea is what I need you guys to take away from this, is that regardless of what you're faced with, regardless of, oh, I'm fighting an opponent that is 8 inches taller than me and his reach is 7 inches longer and he's got this advantage, that advantage, whatever. It is your responsibility to figure out the answer, and sitting around and complaining about it or sitting around and just blaming external circumstances isn't going to do anything for you. Learn to take the responsibility for yourself. Learn to actually make the improvements yourself. And in turn, you're going to be able to see way more success on a long-term scale in your career. So guys, that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time if you're here live or if you're listening back on the replay, the YouTube channel, wherever else you might be getting this. Make sure that you follow along on all the social media platforms, the YouTube channel, the podcast, all of that good stuff. And as always, my big ask of you is if you have a friend, a coach, or a teammate that you believe would benefit from this message, or you've gotten value from the podcast before, share it around. Make sure that you help reach more athletes, help change more people's careers, more people's futures, and in turn, continue to improve the world of sports we all love so much. So guys, I appreciate you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.